ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಉಂಟಲ್ಲ ತಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಾ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆಡ್ ಪ್ಲಸ್. ಡೋರ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀಯಾ? ಯೋ 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 Policía, 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 policía. Let's go. Yo, chat. Chat is there.
Friendly drone deployed. Op 4 is reinforcing its location. Ten seconds to go. 5 seconds to insertion. You found a bomb. Make your way to its location and defuse it.
Where are they?
Frag grenade out.
Second floor.
Deploying smoke grenade. Drone active.
Fuck. Shot me.
The diffuser is no longer in your possession. One op 4 remaining. Down to one friendly.
Oh, chat
15
is only
seconds
one.
left.
Okay.
10 seconds. We have been eliminated.
Perfect.
Four is reinforcing its location. Ten seconds to go. 5 seconds to go. You've located a bomb. Make your way to its location and defuse it.
Reloading!
Gemini will show the way. Gemini, stop!
Let's see what we can see. Friendly, ceasefire!
Op 4 last stop standing.
Damn.
Op 4 eliminated. Friendly mission successful.
Okay, now we are the defenders. I'll defend it with my life. Find it. I gotta let you
Be ready to engage Op 4.
Go on, Jammer. Place device. Activating jammer!
10 seconds left. 5 seconds. Op 4 has located a bomb.
Reloading!
Ready to go. Camera ready to activate.
Barricaded door!
You have been spotted. Friendly, last operator standing. Mission failed. All friendlies have been neutralized. Be ready to eliminate hostiles.
Throwing a mine.
5 seconds left. Op 4 has located a bomb.
Mine ready.
Ambush set. Stay clear.
Someone exposed you. One friendly operator remaining.
which is a reset button. So if you make a bunch of changes, you don't like it, you want to reset your EQ, just go ahead and click that and it's going to reset everything for you. So if you look down in this next section here, this is our graphic equalizer, and this is where you're going to see the changes that you're making to your clip as far as what frequency and what does the change.
Figuring out who you want to play. Maps in R6 are very simple, while also being extremely complex. There are some insane angles, and you will just die to ridiculous things for a long time when you first start out, which is why learning the maps faster will make your time a lot easier playing the game. Each map is made up of things: walls, floors, doorways, windows, and hatches. We're gonna cover each of them so you know what's going on. If you see walls or floors with marble, brick, or cement textures on them, they're indestructible. But if not, impacts, grenades, even shotguns can blast right through them, along with some unique operator abilities. Did I also mention that you can shoot through walls to kill other players? No? Did I also mention those same rules apply to floors and ceilings? No? Weird. Okay, well, it's not all that bad. After all, as a defender, you can just reinforce the walls to keep you protected from all the things I just mentioned. Unless the attackers have a hard breach. In which case, fuck. Because of how much protection they provide, placing reinforcements during the prep phase is super important. But you don't want to accidentally give the attackers an advantage by putting them in the wrong spots. And be sure to watch your toes. While it is true that floors can't be destroyed entirely, it will still give the attackers lines of sight on your cheeks. And they will take every chance they can get to blast your cheeks. Protect your cheeks! By the way, this is what we call vertical destruction, and it can be used to clear out rooms from above or below. But that's not really beginner friendly. So let's just move away from vertical destruction and talk about doorways and windows. Doorways and windows are more than just that, okay? They're also specific locations that you can interact with by either barricading or using specific operator abilities. Kapkan is an operator that can only place his traps on doorways and windows, and the same thing applies to operators like Castle and Aruni. Exterior doors and windows come pre-barricaded, which is a great indicator of where the outside of the map meets the inside. And lastly, all the maps have hatches. These are square outline spots on upper floors and roofs. Players use them for rotating to lower levels, and I say players because either side can use them. As a defender, you could reinforce the indoor hatches to improve your defense, or you could just open it up and use it as an escape route. Actually, speaking of indoors, you do know that as a defender, you should stay indoors at all times, right? I mean, you can go outside for like a couple seconds to get a quick kill if the run out is available, but otherwise just stay inside. Honestly, just don't even go outside. You can do that later. You can do that way later in your game. You don't need to think about that right now. And that one last final component of the maps is of course the default cameras. You know, those little black and white ones that sit up in the corners of rooms and are pre-positioned around all the maps. They're actually really useful and can help you learn the maps a lot quicker. Even the highest ranked players in the game use these cameras all the time. You know what else they use? Angle. And if you want to get better at the game, you got to start using the right angles in the right spots on the right map. The best way to practice this is to start playing the target drill, which can be found in the map training playlist. And we got to start with your controls, more specifically adjusting your mouse sensitivity. And if you're playing controller, good luck. I did make an entire video dedicated to the best settings for 2025, but for the purposes of this video, let's just focus on the basics. Firstly, stick to Q and E for leaning. The last thing you want to do is be clicking the side buttons of your mouse while you're focused on aiming during a gunfight. This is going to completely throw your aim off. So you just sit back and listen to daddy for right now, okay? For your side mouse buttons, it's honestly just all preference. Okay? Oh, by the way, we're just talking about sensitivity, the controls, not your aim. That's a whole different ball game, boys. I'm talking about tracking, flicking, recoil control, and most importantly, map knowledge and crosshair placement. You thought we were done with the maps? This is Rainbow Six Siege, motherfucker. Maps are everything. What, you think just having good aim is enough in this game? It won't be if you don't know where to point that big gun of yours. Luckily for you, I have the perfect aim routine that you can use every time you warm up for the game or just to practice. It only takes 5 minutes, and believe me when I tell you, it is a lifesaver. It's also one of 10 other tips in this video if you want to get better aim. Subscribe. With that being said, it's finally time to start talking about the essentials, baby. Nothing too crazy, just the different types of playstyles, positioning, droning. Oh, and yeah, we're finally gonna get into the operators as well. You ready? Let's go. Defender prep phase. Set up the bomb site and prepare for the attackers. Keep your eyes open for drones to take an extension. Anchoring is going to be really good against passive attackers and very uncoordinated teams. This can be done with any of the operators, but some might be better choices than others. My personal recommendation for a beginner anchor operator is Melusi. She's a trap operator, and her ability is great for slowing down any attackers who enter the radius of her gadget. This can provide you with lots of information around the bomb site and a better anchor. She also happens to be on my list for the top 10 beginner operators for 2025. In this video, I go more in depth on who to ops video. Lastly, roaming. Best used for enemies who don't drone well and attack way too fast. Don't forget to check the default cameras. There's a reason that I mentioned them in the video. They're great if you know what you're doing. So when the round starts, check them, see where the attackers spawn in, and rotate to that side of the map to catch them early. But if your team is under fire,
lazy.
Why lazy? What you will do? It was 5 days holiday. What you did?
Master.
How many times? Per day 5 times. Per week?
Per day 5 total.
Savings please.
Morning, afternoon, before my snack, and after dinner, and before going to sleep.
He's simply roasting you, guys.
You already roasted, you black piece of shit.
rotate back to the site immediately. Moving on to attack. First things first, use those drones to find the defenders and the weak points in their setup. You'll then want to formulate a plan to use those weak points to your advantage. Most bomb sites can be broken down into different takes from opposite sides. Choose one of these areas that you want to push, and then pick an operator who's best suited for the job. Ace and Striker are two operators that are great for any attack on any bomb site. To start, they both have the best weapons in the game. Ace's gadget is a hard-breaching tool called Salmas that opens up reinforced walls quicker and safer than all the other operators. Striker, on the other hand, can pick two of any of the attacking secondary gadgets, which is great for learning the various roles that the attackers have. Just remember remember that no matter what operator you play, the fundamentals of the game will always be the same. Droning, checking corners, crosshair placement, and clearing one room at a time. This is another reason why I recommend Nomad for newer players. For ability, the air jab can be shot around entrances and doorways and activate on proximity to any defenders that walk past them. When this happens, they're going to be launched to the side and vulnerable for a few seconds. This is perfect for maintaining map control and shutting down flanks, giving off a loud audio cue when they're hit. I know all of this sounds like a lot, and it is, but don't get intimidated. Just use the information that you get from your drones and don't be scared to make plays. But before you do that, just try to create some pressure. As an attacker, open new lines of sight through floors and walls using your utility. More angles equals more things to worry about equals less cover equals pressure. Just don't forget to keep yourself safe while you do it. Take cover in repel spots and natural obstacles. When they're squirming around and freaking out on the site, that's where
Stepsister.
you're going to get a ton of free kills thanks to this simple concept. Once you're done adding pressure to the defense and collecting your kills, you still need to gain map control using your drones and utility. The clock is against you. You can't win the round by baiting.
ಸಿಗದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಬಟ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ರೇನು ಆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಟಾಯ್ಲೆಟ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಮ್ಮನೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಟಾಯ್ಲೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಹುಡುಗರದು ವೆರಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಮುಚ್ಚೆ ಅಳತೆ
ಯಾರು ಯಾವುದು ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವನ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ತೆಗೆದು ಆಶ್ರೇ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ಟರ್ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ತೆಪ್ಪೇರಿಯ ನಮ್ಮವಳು ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ತೆಗೆದು ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಕೋಡ್ ಆ ಸೋರ್ಸಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಮೇನ್ ಸೋರ್ಸಿಗೆ
Being like hunted down.
Oh
my god, that guy's ass. Holy shit.
Where's Wes?
Oh, wait. Where? Main. Come on. Jen.
On kid's window.
He's in armory.
Window.
Well, that guy's pretty dumb.
That's Striker. Striker, Mario, Blitz.
That's sad, yeah. Guy just AFK in the corner. Every time I swallow
Holy shit, look at their pings.
Oh, they're fingers.
These guys are from across the fucking world. Oh, man.
BBS.
Addict.
Oh, addict's low, Ash.
This guy's just the best, by the way.
Down.
One op 4 remaining.
Go.
Let me handle this.
No, let's go below.
For my clip.
Oh, he's horrible. He's outside the window.
If you die, I'm actually.
Black here.
But then just rotate the small tower and jump out, and I can distract him.
Reloading, reloading. Oh, he's gonna go out.
Go small. I'll distract him.
Op 4 eliminated. Mission successful.
My guy is not good at all.
Servers need to
Nope.
I'm not paying you right now. You wanna know? I'm shooting you actually. Pigeon, you're a noob. No.
my garage door. Killed me.
I hate you so much.
Alright. Follow me. Alright, so what you're gonna do? I'm gonna map a hole right here. You're gonna sit on the stairs and watch, alright? And I'm gonna.
Engaging drone.
Alright, that's yours for a little bit.
Clear the blast
Just watch
area.
that.
One bottom Z.
Bandit's
man.
already inside.
Yeah, I know, but I wasn't expecting that.
Giving you eyes on the hostile.
Stay clear of the blast.
Hi, no, on main stairs, on main stairs.
Op 4 last
Main
operator
stairs.
standing.
This one's coming from the big tower.
Let me kill him. I need my clip. Aw.
I'm sorry.
Op 4
No,
eliminated.
good, because he stole my window, so you steal slip.
Okay.
Can you look for the echo drones?
Push it up.
He's swung. What, like, he's running him.
He's on that door, Roman. Nice. This one right here.
One garage.
Ready.
Garage.
Alright, I was muted. One's down garage stairs. They're gonna do
Four
garage.
last stop
Last one
standing.
garage, last one garage.
That's one, yeah.
Gonna come down cargo, coming down cargo.
Just playing, bro.
Reloading.
User is active. Protected at all costs.
They're coming cargo right now. Actually, no, never mind. No, I'm watching cargo. He's not cargo.
On my clip.
Just watch exit pigeon. I have cargo stairs right now. Are you vaping or something, bro?
Yeah, what is that?
Upstairs. He's on the head. He's
Whoa.
on the floor hole.
ಯಾರು ಇವ ಬಂದ ಮಾರೆ ಅದು ಪ್ರೇಕ್ಷಣ ಒಂದು ನನ್ನ ಕೆಲಸ ನಾ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಟ್ರೈಲಿಂಗ್ ಹೋಗಿ 30 ಲಕ್ಷ ದುಡಿತೀರಾ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ
Under the water there are traps, old cars, bedsteads.
Yo. Waiting, Anna, waiting. Anna, waiting for stream. Bitches. Yeah. Fortnite. Marcus Brownie. Oh. Vandaro, Baba, Vandaro. Vandaro, Vandaro. Vandaro, Baba, Vandaro. Angela, I should protect it. Whiskers.
Karnataka.
I'm waiting. Waiting, chat. Yes? Oh.
So which country you like? Any country which is not India. Why you hate India? Like
ಈಗ ಅವರು ಡಿಬೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾಳೆ ಅವರೇ ಒಂದು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಡಿಬೇಟ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಗಳು ಯಾವ್ಯಾವಿದೆ?
हम ऐसी गलती दोबारा नहीं करेंगे और ट्रैफिक के नियम का पालन करेंगे. आप भी करिए, यही हमारी विनंती है. धन्यवाद. आपण वाट चालवताना आपला परिवार आपल्या घरी वाट पाहत आहे.
horror comedy universe is coming out. Choti Stree as an animated film. जो होगी रिलीज थिएटर्स में. So it's a black.
How I went from this to the. मरने दो, मरने दो. मरने दो.
We've hidden depths. It's the perfect place for an accident.
On the 29th of June 2025, a group of teenagers ventured into the Miriam River in Bacabal, Brazil, for a quick morning swim. But after several minutes in the water, the group started to realize that one of its members, 13-year-old Raisa, was no longer beside them. And after calling out her name and searching the surrounding area, the realization set in. Raisa had disappeared. It was now likely somewhere in that murky water around them. The news sent shockwaves throughout the community, and straight away locals filled the area to help find this girl. But their attempts were all futile. And with each passing moment, it grew more and more likely that Raisa had tragically drowned, with the search efforts shifting to recovery efforts the next morning. The tragedy led to various news stations arriving on the scene to help document the search, and for one reporter, Lenildo Frazao, he couldn't help but view Raisa's story as a cautionary tale. The Miriam River is particularly unassuming from the surface, which is exactly what made it so dangerous, since it carried with it an unexpectedly strong current and a bottom that was littered with sudden drop-offs, as even in shallow sections, one step could plunge you into deep water without warning. As a result, tragedies like this had sadly happened here before, and for Lenildo, this was the perfect time to highlight the river's dangers, in the hope of preventing one from ever happening again. And he had a unique idea to help achieve this. Rather than just explaining how dangerous the river was, Lenildo wanted to demonstrate it, and so he began to take off his shoes and his pants before entering the water, with his microphone in his hand.
Foi justamente aqui, pessoal. Nós vamos entrar agora na água aqui para mostrar para vocês o local. Olha, a gente já vê que aqui a água é muito forte, ó. E vai descendo, ó. Vixe Maria, vai descendo aqui, viu? Ó.
The camera rolled as he waded into the river, at first going just to the depths of his knees, before the riverbed began to drop beneath him, sending the water all the way up to his chest.
Então, pessoal, e ainda tem a correnteza. Aqui já, olha, ó, passinho para frente, a água já tá praticamente.
And all while this happened, he spoke to the viewers at home about how unsafe this area could be, especially for unattended children who weren't strong swimmers. But even with most of his body now submerged, he wanted to take it even further in order to prove his point. And so he continued wading towards the center of the river, right in the direction of the noticeably fast-moving current, until suddenly...
Olha, andei pouquinho aqui, ó. A água já tá acima do meu peito, para você ver a situação. Se eu andar pouquinho aqui, deixa eu ver aqui. Ó, vou andar mais. Ó a fundura aqui, ó. Ui.
Lenildo physically recoiled and let out a loud yell. He stood there for a moment, anxiously glaring into the water, before telling his crew, "I think there's something down here underwater." Whatever he had touched in those murky depths didn't seem natural, with Lenildo describing it as being soft. And quickly, he made his way back to the shore, where he further explained why he was so shaken by the ordeal, admitting that what he stepped on felt like an arm. This is the exact moment that many believe Raisa was found, as just moments later, several locals would retrace Lenildo's steps and discover the 13-year-old's body in the same exact location. Raisa had died from an accidental drowning, as she wasn't a strong swimmer, and had likely fallen into the deep water where she was held down by the current, the exact conditions that Lenildo had been warning the viewers about, when he unknowingly stepped on her corpse, with the entire ordeal culminating into what can only be described as one of the darkest moments in television history.
How far and what lengths have you gone to find these flowers?
Seems alright, but I'm not a doctor. You know what? She's gonna run it. Oh, no!
Individually, they're just like you and me. But together, they are a source of endless fascination.
And we'll conduct a rigorous scientific experiment into twin telepathy.
Take care out on the street. Use your head and then your feet.
It was a peculiar sight. As traffic flowed through one of the UK's busiest roadways, the M6, CCTV cameras captured two women walking down the narrow median, with a vehicle speeding past them on either side. These women were Sabina and Ursula Eriksson, 40-year-old identical twin sisters who grew up in Sweden, with Ursula eventually moving to the US and Sabina to Ireland. Just one day before this footage was taken, on May 16, 2008, Ursula had made the long flight to visit Sabina at her home in Dublin. But things got off to a troubling start when Sabina got into a verbal altercation with her husband and the father of her 2 kids, prompting both sisters to leave the house in the middle of the night without telling anyone. The next morning, the sisters emerged in the city of Liverpool, where they visited a police station and reported that Sabina's kids were in danger and were unsafe in her husband's care. Law enforcement briefly looked into the matter, but ultimately they didn't seem all too concerned with the children's well-being, and rather they seemed more troubled by the women themselves. Their behavior was just somewhat off, so much so that shortly after leaving the station, they were kicked off a public bus for exhibiting erratic behavior, which some passengers found threatening. And after the altercation, this erratic behavior continued. As for unknown reasons, the pair began walking towards the M6, and then eventually right onto it, where we see them now. It defied any sort of logic, and put them in an extremely dangerous position, a position where one wrong move could lead to a horrific accident. And sure enough, that's exactly what would happen, though it was anything but accidental. Without warning, both women turned and then ran directly into the road, and for Sabina, directly into a car traveling in the fast lane. Immediately, local police were inundated with urgent calls about the ordeal, leading to a group of officers being dispatched to the scene, and coincidentally, the same group just so happened to have a camera crew following them as part of the show Motorway Cops. The show follows traffic officers as they handle their many daily encounters, ranging from mundane traffic infractions all the way to devastating tragedies. And this segment seemed destined for the latter.
Lane 3 is obviously the fastest lane in the motorway. Anyone being hit, you're expecting serious injury, if not life-threatening.
Despite the officers fearing the worst, however, when they arrived on the scene, they were met with a surprising sight. Standing there before them was Ursula and Sabina, who despite being struck by a car at high speeds, appeared completely unharmed. In fact, both sisters were entirely calm, as they were shown casually speaking amongst themselves as if nothing ever happened. It was a miracle, and as the officers began trying to piece together the cause of this whole ordeal, everyone at the scene began to breathe a collective sigh of relief. There was no way that any of them could have known that their roles had just been cast in one of the most disturbing television scenes of all time.
Right, what we've got is they were in the central res. They were trying to cross the Bravo, so as we approached, they hadn't seen us, Mother. The red ones got knocked down by the red car over there. I've got an ambulance en route for her.
Right.
She seems all right, but I'm not a doctor. She has been knocked down.
Is she the one that speaks English or the other one?
Yes.
Right.
The other one, she's the...
Without a single word being spoken, Ursula dashed into the middle of oncoming traffic and directly into the path of a massive truck traveling at over 60 miles per hour. It happened in a literal instant. There was hardly any chance to react, and before anyone could even begin to process what they had just witnessed, Sabina would also run into the road, not after her sister, but rather straight into the path of an oncoming Volkswagen.
The other one, she's gonna run it.
Oh no! Mike Alpha, we need ambulance. Senior officers to the scene. We've got 2 possible fatals.
Within just seconds, this completely calm scene had turned to utter chaos, and both women were now lying on the pavement. Miraculously, they both were still alive. Sabina was stable but knocked unconscious, while Ursula was in rough shape. Her legs had been pulverized by the truck, with paramedics describing them as looking as if they had exploded. And while she lay there on the pavement, she was wide awake and experiencing everything. Within seconds of receiving medical attention, Ursula began to cry out. But strangely, it wasn't in pain. Rather, she was yelling at the paramedics, cursing and even attacking them for trying to help her.
Calm down. Fucking asshole. Calm down. Mine's very aggressive, spitting at me.
Shouting things like, "I recognize you. I know you're not real."
Come on, you've hit your head. Calm down. We are the police. We are the police.
It was clear that she was suffering from some sort of delusion, but while officers had their hands full trying to subdue her, things were about to get even more hectic as Sabina started to regain consciousness.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
She had been brutally struck by a car, as evidenced by the damage to the vehicle itself. But like Ursula, she also appeared almost entirely unfazed, as she stood up and began to scream to her sister, They're going to steal your organs. One of the officers tried to hold her back, but Sabina resisted.
Stay still. Why do you feel me?
Oscar Tango 33.
Eventually shoving the woman to the ground, before once again taking off into oncoming traffic.
No! Stay! Stay there! Calm down, calm down, calm down!
Thankfully, this time the cars managed to avoid her, but it would take 6 officers to finally restrain her, and even with that many people, it was still a struggle, as her strength was unlike anything that they had seen in a woman her size. And with Sabina now subdued, the chaos was finally over. In the following moments, Ursula was airlifted to a local hospital where she underwent an extensive, yet successful emergency surgery, while Sabina was shockingly found to have no injuries, which allowed her to be discharged into police custody after just 5 hours, where she was promptly arrested and sentenced to 1 day in prison for assaulting an officer, as well as trespassing on the motorway. And with both women now safe, one question burned at the forefront of everyone's minds. Why had the Erickson twins done this? Well, the immediate theory was that this was all the result of drug use. But surprisingly, when given toxicology tests, no drugs or alcohol would be found in either of their systems. They were entirely sober during this ordeal, which left only one plausible theory, that this was all the result of some sort of mental breakdown, with both women somehow experiencing its effects at the same time. Today, this case is used as one of the most glaring examples of a psychological disorder known as folie à deux, in which one person suffering from delusions transmits said delusions onto a different person, leading to both people experiencing the same misconstrued version of reality. And while this is only a theory, it's clear that regardless of the how or why, these women were extremely mentally unwell during this event. In fact, during the TV program, an officer even mentioned that this could be a 136.
Yeah. Is she under arrest, baby?
Well, 136 if she is.
Which is a code that allows law enforcement to hold people on account of their mental health to assure that they're safe to return to the public. But shockingly, not only did this never happen, but Sabina was released without ever being given a mental health assessment. In fact, she was never so much as looked over by a mental health professional, and was instead released the very next day after the incident. On top of this, when she was released, she was given no information about Ursula's whereabouts or her condition, or even resources to help find her way home, leaving Sabina still mentally unwell and now stranded in an unfamiliar city, not knowing what happened to her sister. And sadly, her delusions were far from over. As she left the police station on the 19th of May, Sabina had nowhere to go, and so she began to wander, carrying her belongings in the same evidence bag that the police had given her earlier that day. Eventually, she would happen across 2 men walking their dogs, and as she stopped to pet them, Sabina asked the owners where the nearest hotel was. But seemingly recognizing that the woman wasn't well, one of the men, Glenn Hollinshed, offered to have her stay at his place, to which Sabina happily obliged. But once inside Hollinshed's home, Sabina began acting extremely paranoid, checking the windows constantly and believing that her cigarettes had been poisoned. Despite this though, Hollinshed was patient, and he helped her make calls around the area to track down Ursula, while making sure that Sabina was eating and drinking. The following day, Hollinshed was preparing dinner for Sabina when he stepped out of the house to ask his neighbor for tea. But just minutes after returning home with the bags, he would once again step out of the house, only this time, he was completely covered in blood, as he stumbled and screamed, "She stabbed me." As he collapsed to the ground, the neighbor rushed over to try and help, but the damage was already done. Hollinshed would let out one final soft whisper, saying, "Look after my dog for me," before breathing his final breath. For unknown reasons, in that house, Sabina had stabbed Glenn Hollinshed, and by the time law enforcement arrived, she was long gone, having fled the house with a hammer in her hand, which she used to strike her head repeatedly as she mumbled incoherently and walked down the sidewalk. Eventually, a man passing by tried to intervene, but Sabina immediately attacked, brandishing a roof tile that she had hidden in her pocket and using it to strike him on the head, nearly knocking him unconscious. It would take several minutes for police to finally catch up with her, but just like the day prior, she took off, leading to a chase that ended with Sabina being surrounded on a 40-foot tall bridge that passed over a highway, and recognizing that there was nowhere left for her to go, she jumped. Somehow, Sabina would cheat death once again, and despite suffering 2 broken ankles and a skull fracture, she was alive. And after a lengthy recovery, she was put on trial for the murder of Glenn Hollinshed, where she would never give a single comment as to why she did what she did, leaving her motive a total mystery to this day. though it seems clear that it was at least partially a result of her delusions, with the defense pointing to folie à deux as a potential explanation. And in the end, it was deemed that Sabina was not mentally fit to make decisions at the time of the slaying, and ultimately, she was given a prison sentence of just 5 years. This is truly one of the most disturbing TV cases of all time. And for as shocking as it is on its own, what I find most chilling is the fact that these officers mentioned holding her for a psychiatric evaluation, which ultimately never happened.
She's under arrest, baby.
Well, 136 if she is.
It was a massive oversight. In fact, it was so glaring that the police department allegedly contacted the show and asked them to remove this entire section. As if they had just followed through with that code 136, Sabina would have been held for longer than just one night, which meant that she not only may have been given the help she needed, but she also never would have had the chance to meet Glenn Hollinshed that fateful day. Since her release from prison in 2011, Sabina promptly disappeared from the public eye, and neither she nor Ursula has ever been heard from again, meaning we have no idea whatever happened to the Eriksson twins.
They just simply tend to be making the same decisions at the same times. They're thinking in the same way.
It's December 2021. A couple receives a warm welcome as they walk onto the stage, ready to compete in the Croatian television show Super Talent, the country's version of America's Got Talent. But it's clear this excitement from the crowd wasn't shared by the show's host, who turned to someone standing behind the camera and flashed the unmistakable look of concern. In the minutes prior, the audience at home was introduced to the pair, 34-year-old singer Roman Bernada and his wife, 44-year-old violinist Bianca Kolumpar, along with their child, who would be watching on as the two shared their musical talents with the world. In their day-to-day lives, Roman was a professional goalkeeper for a local soccer team, while Bianca was a professional violinist with a doctorate in music. And while on paper this all seems fairly normal, it was immediately clear to those watching that this couple was anything but. The two frequently went on long-winded and bizarre rants, with Bianca opening up about her breast enlargement surgery.
Ja sam imala kao cura velike grudi, velika mi je bila želja da to vratim, operirala sam.
And the two discussing at length their belief in a living God who walked the earth.
Ali ja osjetim, stvarno imam taj kontakt sa živim Bogom i mislim da je Bog svugdje oko nas, da je Bog osoba, energija, istovremeno, da.
But it was their performance itself that proved to be the strangest part of their time on the show.
Pozdrav svima.
Dobro večer.
Vi se mene ne sjećate, jel da?
Ja?
Ne. Prije puno godina.
Aha, ja se nas sjećam kad sam snimala
škola, jel ide Harbor, ide? Je, ja se ispričavam, ali stvarno moram vas to pitati.
Roman's introduction was fairly uncomfortable, as he made mention of a time that he had met one of the judges years before, who clearly had no recollection of the encounter, which seemed to frustrate him, as his demeanor quickly became hostile.
Ko je vaš talent? S čim ste se došli
Ja nemam nikakav talent.
Pa šta ste onda došli?
Radit.
Ali potpuno nebitno, emisija se zove Super Talent,
ja vas
kolegica...
volim, nemojte mi zamjeriti.
Alo, polako, mislim da ipak ćemo mi ovdje voditi riječ.
Može, pa.
Leading to Roman receiving his first X before he even sang a single note.
Ako je kolegica pitala koji je vaš talent, a naša emisija se zove Super Talent, a vi tvrdite da nemate talent, onda vas ja pitam pošto ste došli.
Radit. Okej, hvala, može.
It was a rough start for the couple, and by the time they did get to perform, things only got worse.
And now, the end is near, and so I face the final curtain.
Šta da radim? Ludilo.
Admittedly, the couple didn't sound awful, but it was clear the judges were frustrated by Roman's demeanor, prompting all four of them to hit their X, signaling the end of the couple's performance. Or at least they thought. Just shouting their name and the deafening silence from the crowd. with the two going until a producer finally had to step in from behind the camera and officially cut them off. But even then, the couple continued their antics, this time by protesting the judge's decision, with Bianca even threatening to go to the newspaper and expose their behavior to the press, all while Roman stood angrily to the side, glaring at the panel before him. And with that, Roman and Bianca's time on Super Talent was over, and they not only walked away without receiving the grand prize, but they also left with shattered reputations, as this segment became notorious among fans of Super Talent, with the couple being considered one of the most unusual acts to ever feature on the show. But despite its virality, this performance isn't what Roman is most widely remembered for today. On February 6th, 2022, residents in Rijeka, Croatia were met with the sight of a fully nude man wandering the city streets. It was Roman Bernata, and while most stared on in amusement, laughing to themselves and snapping photos, what they were witnessing was actually one of the most disturbing events the city had ever seen. After his disastrous performance just 1 year prior, Roman continued to pursue a career in singing, taking every opportunity he could to share his music with the world, often joining Bianca on her YouTube channel and singing on the streets for tips, where he actually made a decent amount of money, though because of his notorious television moment, he would often be harassed and even have the money he earned stolen from him. One day, while performing outside of a local soup kitchen, he was introduced to a woman named Darnika Krevic, a 67-year-old who relied on the soup kitchen for consistent meals. And after hearing Roman sing, she became a legitimate fan of his music, leading to the two striking up a friendship. And despite Darnika not having much, she offered to take Roman to a local coffee shop on February 6th, 2022, where she treated him to a warm cup of tea on a cold winter day. And so the two sat inside a restaurant called the Café Pin, with everything seeming completely normal, until a server noticed that Roman started to look almost sickly, like he could barely keep himself upright, as his body was starting to slump over the table, his eyes barely open. The server rushed over to help, but Roman recoiled and shouted, "Just try calling the police on me." And so, not wanting to escalate things, the server left, only returning later to drop off their check, which is when Roman's behavior took an even more drastic turn. He began feeling around his pants pocket for his wallet, before looking desperately around the table, but there was no sign of it. And so he grabbed Darnika's bag and rifled through it, before yelling, "You snake, you whore, where's my wallet?" Though when he still couldn't find it in Darnika's bag, his anger turned to violence, as he stood up and rushed Darnika, grabbing her by the head and shaking her, screaming in her face, accusing her of being a thief. This time, multiple people inside the cafe rushed over to hold him back, but Roman was too strong, too angry, and with seemingly no effort at all, he pushed everyone away, completely unfazed by their attempts. In that moment, no one could have stopped Roman. Darnika was entirely helpless, and so the crowd inside the cafe watched as Roman grabbed her by the neck and dragged her behind the bar, and then proceeded to kick, then stomp, and then jump directly on her, over and over again, each time landing on her head. It was a rage so demented that he actually began to smile a wide manic grin as he jumped and chanted, "Whore, witch, die." After what felt like an eternity, Roman stopped, before sprinting out of the restaurant, leaving Darnika entirely unrecognizable and dead on the floor. The same floor where, just feet away, Roman's wallet lay, having innocently fallen out of his pocket shortly before. Outside, Roman removed his blood-soaked clothes and walked completely naked into the city center, much to the amusement of the passerbys who had no idea what he had just done, until eventually he made his way into a nearby police station and blankly stated, "I am not well." This sentiment was true in so many regards. Roman hadn't been well for quite a long time. Since a young age, it's believed he had dealt with undiagnosed schizophrenia that had led to uncontrollable anger issues, before developing an alcohol and substance abuse problem that only exacerbated his symptoms. And by the time he was an adult, Roman became so delusional that he believed he was a disciple sent from God to touch the world with his music, something that he eventually convinced Bianca of as well. So in their Super Talent episode, when Bianca mentioned their love for a living God that walked the earth, she was likely referencing Roman.
Ali ja osjetim, stvarno imam taj kontakt sa živim Bogom i mislim da je Bog svugdje oko nas, da je Bog osoba, energija, znači sve. Istovremeno, da.
Roman was severely unwell, and no one in his life was keeping him in check. In fact, those closest with him were only feeding his delusions, with all of his issues coming to a head on the day of the incident. And when he realized his wallet was gone, Roman rushed to assume that Darnika was the one who robbed him, perhaps as a result of having his money stolen frequently on the streets. But the sad reality was, in a sea of people trying to exploit and mock Roman, Darnika was one of the few who actually truly cared about him and legitimately believed in his talent. Simple was deemed unfit to stand trial and was never sentenced to serve any jail time, instead being given a 40-year sentence in a mental health facility to leave the
Nature is king here. Man can only watch and be humble.
There's nothing out there, it's your imagination.
It was the start of yet another adventure for the crew of the television show Gardener's World. This British program has been on the air since the 1960s and provides viewers with tips on how to maintain their garden while showing off a variety of unique plant life, which often brought them to remote areas of the globe. This particular episode was filmed on February 5th, 2020 in the Drakensberg mountain range of Lesotho, Africa, with the host, Nick Bailey, making the long journey to track down one specific flower.
One species which grows wild all over the country and has been a real favourite with British gardeners for generations is the gladiolus.
This delicate flower would have been familiar with many of the show's viewers, as it was quite popular in the UK. But in this region, there existed a unique species that had only been seen a handful of times in the last century, since it only grew in one particular valley in this one particular mountain range. Its scientific name is the Gladiolus microcarpus, and there were two people who knew it better than anyone else. Rod and Rachel Saunders were well-renowned botanists who studied the world of South African flowers in depth, with their favorite being the gladioli, as they would spend days and even months on end roaming areas just like this to learn everything they could about them, making them the perfect duo to help with the show.
Why gladioli? There's so many different plant species in South Africa you could have picked.
I think their beauty. Some of them are so exquisitely beautiful, you actually just want to sit down and cry when you see them.
But even with their vast knowledge of this region, there was always an element of danger when traversing it. Its climate is often volatile, and conditions are known to turn on a dime, making safely navigating this area extremely difficult to downright impossible. This was apparent even on the day of filming, as a dense fog had rolled in, and given the steep and rocky landscape, one wrong step could spell disaster. This didn't stop the crew from carrying onward though, as Rod and Rachel were relentless in their pursuit. They would do anything to find these flowers, and sure enough, the segment ended as they did exactly that.
We've come about 4 times looking for this plant, and this is the best I've ever seen it. It is looking absolutely gorgeous.
With that, Rod and Rachel's time on Gardener's World was over, but their journey through this area certainly wasn't. As the cameras cut, the crew made their way back to their makeshift base camp miles away, where they said their goodbyes, with Nick Bailey capturing a photo with a beloved couple and sharing it onto Twitter before parting ways, leaving the couple behind. As rather than returning to their home in Cape Town, this was actually just the start of what would be a multi-month expedition into this region, with the Ngoi Forest Reserve being their final destination. Along with being botanists, the couple were also avid seed collectors, and had started a business which shipped the seeds they had found to other plant lovers around the world. And while here, they made it their mission to find some of these ultra-rare gladioli seeds. And sure enough, on February 8th, 2020, Rod and Rachel sent a text to one of their employees at the seed mailing business, which contained a photo of the exact flower they were looking for. But despite this text seeming like a sign of more good things to come, the reality was far more bleak, as this text would ultimately be the last the couple would ever send. Out of nowhere, communication with Rod and Rachel had stopped entirely, and for days no one heard anything from the duo, prompting that same employee they had sent the image to report them as missing on the 10th of February. It was a devastating turn of events, but one that was always a possibility. Poor weather, a wrong turn, an injury, anything could have derailed their expedition, as again, this area was notoriously dangerous, with it seeming all but certain that they had fallen victim to the unpredictable fury of Mother Nature, though this belief would quickly shift, thanks to the discovery of the couple's car. It was found by authorities abandoned by the edge of the Tugela River, and had been emptied of virtually everything inside. However, there was something left behind, as in the trunk, authorities would find a massive pool of blood that belonged to Rachel. Just days after filming, Rod and Rachel were making their way towards the Ngoi Forest Reserve, growing more and more excited by the discoveries they were making, oblivious to the fact that in the woods around them, they were being watched, hunted even, and not by an animal, but rather by a man. His name was Saifundin Aslam Delvicio, a local of the area that the couple was traversing, and on February 9th, he allegedly sent a text to his wife, Bibi Patel, telling her that he had found a good target, and that he was now in pursuit, with said target being Rod and Rachel. Later that night, the couple made their camp and began to drift off in their tent, while Del Vecchio allegedly watched on, and once he was certain that they had fallen asleep, he made his move, approaching the tent, then tearing it open, and then standing above the couple. In the following moments, Rod and Rachel would be brutally bludgeoned to death before they could even react, as they lay helplessly, still inside their sleeping bags. Text messages indicate that Del Vecchio then enlisted the help of his wife Bibi, as well as his friend Musa Jackson, to help discard the bodies, using the couple's own car to transport them to the one place they were certain they would never be found: the Tugela River, as there was something about this stretch of water that they believed would make these bodies impossible to find: crocodiles. And so they pulled up to the banks of the river as the crocodiles quietly watched on from a distance and dumped the bodies of Rod and Rachel into the water, where they were immediately devoured. They thought it was the perfect plan. However, it thankfully failed to work as well as they had hoped, as in the following weeks, fishermen would happen upon both of the corpses, or at least what remained of them, as they were in such bad shape that it would take nearly 2 full months for them to be identified. As for why this attack happened, we still don't fully know, as the trial is still ongoing, with Del Vecchio proclaiming his innocence, which is why everything is alleged at the moment, but the evidence is damning. Messages on Del Vecchio's phone paint a clear picture that he was responsible for this, with his motive appearing to be religious differences between him and the Saunders, as well as money, as after the slayings, large sums of money were withdrawn from the couple's bank accounts, along with lavish purchases being made on their credit cards, with one of the receipts from the shopping spree being found inside of Bibi's purse. The evidence is almost impossible to deny, but while we wait for justice to be served, it's important to refocus on those who won't be here to see it happen. Rod and Rachel truly did nothing wrong. They were two incredibly wholesome people who were just trying to find and connect with the flower that they loved so dearly. And while their interview days before their death is an undeniably dark television moment, it also serves as an incredible tribute, as one of the last things they ever did in their lives was share their love and passion for gladioli with the world, the flower that they ultimately gave their lives to find.
Quite a trek to get here, and what an incredible treat to see such a special plant in such a niche environment. Thank you.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure. It's nice to be here.
Speaking over me almost, and it's really creepy, and we didn't even notice at the time, and I'm just noticing now that I'm editing this that there was actually some voice there, so
你再这样我就报警了，真讨厌！好险啊，表哥， 你差点就走错了。
Cousin?
你是
This is my cousin?
表哥，欢迎你来泰国。
等等，我表舅叫什么？
张军呀，怎么了？
哦。